Christian Farmers TV, and welcome to AgriTalk again. Today on AgriTalk, we are talking about snail production or snail farming. And with me in studio is Dr. Paul Kinoti, who is the coordinator at the Bio Snail Project at the Jomo Kenyatta University of Science and Technology. Welcome back to the show, Dr.
Thank you very much.
Before we took a break, you were telling us about the diseases that affect the snail.
Yes.
Maybe you can tell us again and tell us how they can treat, and even how can I tell that a snail is sick?
Good. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for that question. Maybe I'll identify. Okay, there are two major diseases. That is a bacteria and a fungi, as I mentioned. Now, in terms of how will you know that a snail is sick? Basically, with experience, you will be able to identify that a snail that does not feed, a snail that is not mobile, is just stuck there, and a snail that seems to have retracted itself right inside the shell is a characteristic of ill health. Meaning, if you touch the head or you touch the tentacles, it's supposed to go back, but only feel up to the mouth, that is the opening part of the shell. If it goes straight inside, it means it's a weaker one, and therefore it's a sign of ill health. Okay. Two, if it is not feeding, it's just docile, it's just stay there. You can see that even when you take it to the other side of the pen, for example, it doesn't move. That will also tell you it's also not. And of course, you'll see some excretion that are normally either greenish, either yellowish, or whatever. That will give you an idea that that snail is not feeling well. Now, like I said...
What is the normal excretion?
The normal excretion is normally blackish or thereabout. Okay. Normally, there are no bactericides or fungicides to treat snail. First and foremost, the pesticides are harmful to snail. So what do you do when you know that a snail is sick? One, isolation. You pick it aside. Of course, another point I forgot is that when you see the mortality is very high, for example, you are collecting 2, 3, 4 snails that are dead, that is also another sign of sickness or something is not right. If it's not a pest, then most likely there's some kind of sickness within the snail. Now, how do you handle this or manage? One is to do the isolation or quarantine. Pick the ones that look ill health, the ones that have broken shells, the ones that are producing very funny looking kind of excretes, and of course the ones that are retreating inside the shell. Put them aside and then try to give them something like moringa. Moringa has been shown to be to have a high medicinal property that when snails feed on them, they tend to recover, even when they are really sick. And then another one is that they also survive on neem trees. So the neem is also medicinal. So try to prepare a concoction or even give them the leaves. They will start feeding. And when they start feeding, they heal naturally. Of course, some of them will die, but others may survive. But that should give you an indication something is not right within there. So the bottom line here is that ensure proper nutrition, proper hygiene, and basically keep away predators and pests. And you will forget about diseases.
Okay.
Yes.
Do I have to move them every season, or I can keep them in the same place for a while?
Snails normally, when you are constructing pen, for example, you construct them for different ages in terms of sizes. I don't know whether that's a question you're asking.
No, it's fine. Just
yeah.
go.
So when they are very young, they stay in a particular unit. Of course, as they increase in size, they become more competitive because of the population. Now you have to move them to another cubicle. But you can still keep a rotation. You start from the juvenile, the growers, the point of lay, and the mature one. And then they rotate. Of course, people have scarcity of space. So it would be very uneconomical for them actually to keep relocating to different places. So what happens is that they just create partitions where they move from one area to another depending on age, and also, of course, depending on size and the stage of development.
Okay.
Yes.
There's something I forgot when I asked about how to feed them. How often do you feed them in a day?
Good question. Snails are normally nocturnal, meaning they are very active at night. So during the day, they remain quiescent, that is very inactive. They are just sleeping maybe under the shade. But around 6, 7 in the evening, they start coming out. That is the best time to feed them and to water them. Then the following day, you come in and collect all the remnants, especially the ones that are likely to rot. And then you wait for the following. So this is a very nice kind of a program where you can just do it after work. So you come back to work, you work the whole day. In the evening when you go, just before you start watching the news, you feed them. Tomorrow morning before you leave for your place of work, you collect the remnants and then you leave them there.
Okay, so yes. I have to collect the remnants every morning?
Not really, but depends on the decomposition of those remnants. Okay. If you have fruits like, for example, pawpaw, or for example, the sweet melon, if you leave them for a day or two, they will start decomposing, and this can bring even flies, even an offensive smell, or even create a conducive environment for diseases.
Oh, okay.
But if it's just leaves that are dry and they are not decomposing, they can stay even for 2 to 3 days.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, let's move. Tell us a little bit about the snail slime and how can I extract it?
When it comes to value addition, the 3 main components are actually the shell, the flesh, and the slime. Now, talking about the slime is the mucus normally generated by a certain cells within the snail flesh, mainly for their protection and for their mobility. So, in order to maximize use of these, there are ways and means of harvesting. 2 broad ways. One, there are the crude methods, which are normally not acceptable according to the international standards that regulate, for example, skincare and cosmetic products. That means people use things like salt, they use like hot pepper, they use like lime, they use vinegar. Those are very scorching. They are not the best one, because the idea here is that no consumer shall benefit from the slime generated from snail as a result of its suffering. So it can't be allowed to suffer so that you can enjoy the beauty or even protection for their skin. Okay. So that is one. The second one is where you use a machine. And that machine uses what we call the acidification principles, where they are introduced into a chamber, and that chamber is acidified a little bit. This creates an irritation, because snails normally secrete slime or they secrete mucus because of 2 reasons. 1, out of pleasure, and 2, out of irritation. So when they are irritated, now they will tend to secrete, and acidity is one of the irritants, a very weak acid. And then from there they secrete, but they don't die. So this is a kind of a secretion where the snails still remain alive, unlike the previous crude methods. And then from there, you can harvest like 5 to 10 meal per snail. Then, of course, you purify, and then you prepare it, which now can be used as a raw material for a cosmetic or a skincare product.
Okay.
Yes.
I'm still trying to wrap my head in that process.
Yes.
For me,
yes.
Which will be the easier?
The easiest one, because now you are targeting snail slime for market. It means the standards that apply, which are European regulated, shall apply. In this case, it is the one that normally you excrete, or you initiate the process of secretion without harming the snail. In other words, the snail should not die. Okay. So the second one is the best for a commercial or an agribusiness-oriented person.
Okay.
Yes.
So does JECWAR provide this machine that we use to help the secretion?
Well, the machine, the only organization which used to provide that machine is the Mula One. Mula One is an Italian organization that's mainly involved in slime. It's actually what Jomo Kenyatta is working with. And initially it was very expensive because it used to cost 40,000 euro. But to the moment it is. So what Jomo Kenyatta is doing is to try and bring farmers into groups and then try to acquire 1 or 2 of those machines. Of course, we have one machine that we are using for our own extraction, and then farmers now can form groups, and then from there they can purchase, or the university can facilitate, where now they can be extracting they can do a rotation. And then after harvesting, you return your snail back to the pen, and then you get your slime. Of course, you can bring to us and we can be able to purchase.
Okay.
So that's the only way we can facilitate. But of course, we expect with the time, this machine will be more available and affordable.
How big is it? How big is this machine?
It's like a standard table. Yes, a normal standard office table, because it has 3 chambers: the cleaning, the secretion part, and the collection part.
Okay.
Yes.
So does any snail at any age qualify for secretion?
Good question. Age matters, and of course health. The healthier they are, the better. Normally snails, especially Achatina fulica, we have seen that at the age of 5 to 6 months, they tend to produce substantial amount of slime, with peak being 8th to 10th month. Yes. So the age matters. So very young ones, they may not be able to produce because it requires a lot of energy. So when you subject them to that kind of a treatment, when they are very young, then they are likely to become retardant. And this actually may interfere even with their growth. So 6 months was seen to be the best, with an average of about 8 to 10.
Okay.
Yes.
And how often can I do it?
Good question. From our trials that we have done, because I'm looking at it in terms of findings that we have found, we have realized that if you milk them, another term for snail slime extraction is milking. If you milk them, for example, today, you do it in the morning and the evening, and then you leave them for about 2 to 3 days to recover, what we call a recovery period. And you can do this like 5 to 6 times. Then after that, they are so exhausted and they may not be economic in terms of slime production. They are ready for other processing.
Okay.
Yes.
So what is this slime used for, and how is it, now that it's been extracted, that the machine collected for you somehow, and what is the use of this byproduct?
Good. If I was to mention, I would say the gold mine of snail is actually the slime. That is the king, because what happened is that there is a lot of value in this particular slime, or the mucus. The mucus has been analyzed and has been found to have a lot of biochemical products, such as allantoin, glycolic acid, vitamin B12, and so on. Those ones have been found to have very much effect on the skin. No wonder the Romans, the Persians, used to use those slime for their own skin tenderizing, the moisturizing nature. So the slime that we extract, or the slime that is normally extracted, can either be, one, used naturally as it is for cleansing. They moisturize, they create that very nice conducive. Or they can be made into a skincare product, like a sunscreen, which can protect people against the UV, A, and B, because they have been shown to have also what we call anti-skin cancer, the melanoma kind of suppression, which is very, very critical. Then they can also be used as beauty. In fact, from our trials, we found that children who, for example, have eczema, children or people who have this acne, black spots, and also these burns, tend to heal when they are being subject to that kind of treatment. So you can either make soap, which people can use to wash, and this soap has medicinal property, because from it now you can be able to handle the ailments I've mentioned, or even beautify, moisturize the skin, or you can make what we call a cream out of it. This cream again plays the same role. In fact, Jomo Kenyatta University is making a lot of income from this slime generated kind of a cosmetic and the skincare product. Apart from that, allow me to mention that it has also been found to be having some pharmaceutical, because things like whooping cough, things like ulcers are also treated. For your information, some of the syrups that are found, for example, in some country, I'm not sure about Kenya because I don't have evidence for that, they have that particular ingredient. But when you are sick, you not wonder what it is. You just swallow it and you're okay. So it has been shown to have that kind of effect on human bodies. Okay.
These products that you say the university makes, where can people find them?
Good question. We have a wing called JQuat Enterprises. which is a commercial wing of the university, which normally all the innovation, all the commercial product are channeled toward them. You can also get them from nearby shops and all that. We are, of course, in the process of trying to reach out many other places because, for example, you have a customer from Mombasa. So what we do, we normally compensate for the courier or the transportation. But the long run plans are that we work with a supermarket, for example, the Naivas, or even these beauty shops, where we can be able to reach as many customers within the country, or even beyond.
So how is the university buying it? How do you measure when you're buying it? The slime.
Oh, we measure them in terms of liter. That is the unit of measurement. And 1 liter we are buying for the project from the farmers now that we train, because this is a whole chain. A farmer is trained, is facilitated, and then we purchase the product. So 1 liter is going at 1,200.
1,200?
Kenya shilling.
Okay.
Yes.
And how many snails do I need to produce a liter?
On average, snails generate about, especially the common species found in Kenya, the Achatina fulica, between 5 to 10 meals per day. So assuming you have an average of how many? 7 meals. Then you just need to multiply and get the average. So like how many? So to get a liter, you need about 1,000 milliliter. Yes. Then how many snails are those? About how many? I don't know my mathematics. 300?
Something about
400?
It's
Yes.
about there.
Something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it will be a lot. I thought we'll be talking about 1,000. Let's talk about the other two, the shell and now the meat.
And the
Start
meat.
with the shell and then we go to the meat.
Oh, good. Like I said, there are 3 compartments of snails that are of economic importance because we use everything about snail. The shell, from the analysis we have done, comprise about 98% calcium carbonate. So from this, we are able to identify 3 key areas that we can be able to make money out of it. One is the liming material. We have realized that because calcium carbonate constitute a larger percentage, it can be used to lime. So if you have thousands, millions of them, it's just a matter of crushing, then making them into a powder. And then lime is all about calcium because of the pH. And then that can be used either in fish ponds or even in our small kitchen gardens where you can sprinkle and lower the pH so that the plants can do well. Another one is that animal feeds. They also require calcium fortification. And so we have seen that like broilers, when we add some little of those crushed shell, they also tend to perform much better than when an ordinary calcium is added. Probably the synergistic effect is what is actually making the difference. And then, of course, you have the fertilizer. Because when you prepare a compost and then you add those crushed shells, they also tend to make the compost a little bit more pulverized. They also increase the calcium content, and plants tend to perform better. Apart from that, we have the artistics. They can be decorated, they can be made into some good-looking structures and all that, and people can make out of money, especially the youth, especially those people who know how to paint. In fact, the French are fond of that. They tend to buy them, they tend to decorate them, they make very nice necklaces out of them, and they sell.
Okay.
Yeah.
So is the university also buying the shells, and how much?
The university is not into buying of the shell. The component that will buy the shell will be the fertilizer component, which is yet to be established. Okay. The university only buy the slime from the farmers.
Okay.
Yes.
And the other product, the meat?
The meat, as we are aware that from early as 50 BC, people used to eat meat of snail. In fact, from some archaeological evidence, it has been found that some roasted kind of shells were found in those Roman, meaning they used to consume. And so these are product that is very highly in terms of nutrients, nutrition-wise and health-wise. And we find that the meat is very rich in protein, The meat is very rich in selenium, and you know selenium is very good, especially during this time of COVID, because we know that it boosts the immunity. We know that the benefit of selenium is immune booster. Of course, we have the vitamin B12, which is also good in the processing of things like folic acid. We have the iron. So in terms of consuming this meat, which can be either taken the way it is as a boiled, it can be taken either as a powder by grinding it, or it can be roasted and eaten. The net effect that you gain these nutrients into your body. And of course, the most important thing, they have omega-3, which is very, very important, like in the fish. And also, they have what you call less cholesterol. So things like cardiovascular diseases, like hypertension, are things that you cannot talk of if you are actually a consumer of snail meat.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do I get it from the shell? That is the, and how, apart from just boiling, which other form can it be cooked?
Well, let me explain, for example, how to get it from the shell.
Yes.
And then prepare it for cooking, for eating.
Yes.
Yeah, there are two ways of getting snails out of the shell. One, the crude method, which we do not really advocate, because as care of animals, we are also very careful in the way we are trying to transit them from life to death. And people will be very careful if they realize how you treat the snail before it dies, before they can actually accept it, especially the original consumers of snail. One is actually the boiling. They just put it in a pot, they boil water, and then from there it oozes some liquid, and then a foam, and then from there they scoop it. That's a very crude way. Another one is using a hammer. They just hit the shell, it crack, and then they get the snail. That's also a very crude way. The third, which is the most advocated way, is to use a lime. Lime is a very easy way of killing snail. It is gentle and reserved. So after 10 to 15 minutes, you will see that it has become docile. Then you just put it in warm water, and thereafter it just comes out on its own. So the lime, to some extent, detaches it from the shell. And the moment the snail is detached, it becomes no longer active. And then from there, now you can get it quietly, and then from there, you take it through the procedures of preparing it for consumption.
So you prepare it like any other meat?
Well, it's a little bit technical. Some people in Nigeria and Ghana, they use the cassava, fermented cassava and all that, to try and remove the slime. Because the idea here is that to create that crispness because of the mucus. You have to get rid of the mucus, but how do you do it? And yet you can't wash it just like that with water. Remember, you are not even using soap. So what you do is that you use lime. Lime and vinegar has also been shown, and of course a combination of salt at a later stage. So the first thing is to saturate it with lime or vinegar. And then from there you put it in clean water that is gently warm. Not very hot, not very cold. And then you transfer it to another bucket of water. You wash it and then put it either in vinegar or salt. After that, you can even feel it's no longer that slimy, it's crisp. Then you dry. Of course, you now separate the intestine. And some people say you cut off the head. Personally, I don't see the reason why you should cut off the head. That's where the nutrients are concentrated. You remove now the intestine, take them away, and then, of course, now the remaining part, which is about 30% of the entire creature, is now prepared either for boiling. Remember, snails, you have really to cook and cook, because if not, then they could be easily contaminated. Then you can either cook by boiling, you can fry, you can roast, or you can just prepare the way the other people normally prefer. Just put salt and eat it.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ari. I think that's the best place to end this conversation.
Yes.
I'm trying to imagine myself going. I see even our cameraman is laughing because the process of the things you've mentioned.
Yes.
Of preparing the snail for eating. Some of us, I don't think we've gotten there yet.
Yes.
Maybe with the time, maybe our children and our grandchildren will get there. But for now, let's just leave it at that.
Yes.
For our viewers back at home, thank you for keeping it KTN Farmers TV. Today we are talking about snail farming, and you've heard it's makes good money. If you can produce a liter of slime, and it goes for 1,200 shillings, and the university is ready to buy it from you, then I think it's something you can try, especially now that things are tough and you only need a very small space. Until next time, that is it. Goodbye.